Okay, let's take a look at the reading workbook, the third passage. Okay, so how's this passage? Okay, close your eyes. On a scale of 1 to 5, how hard was this? Thought it was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, good. Take a look. It's about women's rights, right? You can see that in the title. Although passage 1, it's also going to focus on quote unquote democracy. Okay, so it's probably going to incorporate democracy into that subject matter. So let's take a look here. You need to read this though, right? As United States and European societies grew increasingly democratic. Okay, so we're talking about some kind of change over time, right? So as some kind of change over time is happening, debates arose, right? So what was that change? They were less democratic, but they were becoming more democratic over time. So we're talking about in a period of time where that change was occurring, okay? About whether freedoms enjoyed by men should be extended to women as well, okay? So I don't know exactly what they mean by freedoms. I don't know if it's the right to vote or whatever, but we'll find out in the passage, okay? So it's about women's rights. It's about, so it's kind of contextualizing women's rights, right? It's looking at that in a bigger picture, right? So it's not just a time period in which women's rights were becoming an issue, but more as society itself was becoming more democratic. So that you should keep in mind. And then let's go to the first passage. It says, I have shown, okay, so I have shown where? Okay, so I mean, because we start in the middle of the passage, right? This is an excerpt. It's not the entire passage. So I guess what he was talking about previous to this paragraph was how democracy destroys or modifies the different inequalities, right? Okay, so democracy is going to have a cause and it's going to serve as a cause in a causal relationship, right? So what's that cause and effect? Democracy gets rid of inequalities, right? Pretty obvious, right? So democracy causes inequalities to disappear, right? So he's talking about this, right? Inequalities which originate in society. And then he says, but is this all? Okay, so he wants to extend his argument and he says, or does it not ultimately affect that great inequality? Okay, so I don't know exactly what that great inequality is. It's here, of man and women. Oh, okay. So now he's saying, yeah, so now that I discussed the fact that democracy destroys different inequalities, let's move on to one specific inequality, right? That inequality that I'm going to be discussing is between the two sexes, right? Man and women, which has seemed up to the present day. Okay, so it's a before and after, or old and new here, right? Up to the present day to be eternally based in human nature, okay? So up till some point in time, right? So before this point in time, there was that inequality, right? And they thought that this was based in human nature, right? That what? Men and women are different. Okay, but I guess not now, right? I believe that the social changes, okay, so this is his point of view. Whenever a passage tells you, I believe, or, my claim, or something like that, right? It's talking about its claim explicitly here. I believe that those social changes, which bring near to the same level the father and son, blah, 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 will raise women and make her more the equal of man. So this is the sentence. This whole bit is modifying the social changes, right? Okay, so what kind of social changes are we talking about? Let's find that out first. What are the social changes? Which bring near to the same level the father and son. So he's suggesting that there is an inequality between a father and son, but that inequality, the disparity is reduced, right? The master and servant, same here. Superiors and inferiors, generally speaking. So there are certain social changes, and he thinks that this will make women the equal of man, right? So there are social changes happening here, and those social changes will make men and women more equal. That's what he's saying, right? Okay, so that's what we have so far, right? But what he wants to get at eventually here is this fact. There are certain social changes occurring. We don't know what they are, though, right? We don't know if it's like a revolution. We don't know if it's like just like a social movement. I don't know what they are, right? But there is that change occurring because of these social changes, okay? It said, and after this, it starts with the but, so I want to, so this is like an additional point made on top of this, which you need to take account of. But here, more than ever, I feel the necessity, okay, so of making myself clearly understood. So this is a clarification. We've seen this before, right? Let me not be misunderstood, something like that, right? Let me not be understood as saying there are no bad laws. He's saying, yeah, I know that there are bad laws. Don't misunderstand my statement, right? So here he's saying, yeah, okay, so let me clarify myself. Let me clear myself, for there is no subject on which the coarse and lawless fancies of our age have taken a freer range. Okay, so he's saying, okay, let me clarify myself because, right? Because there's no subject on which the lawless fancies of our age have taken a freer range. What does it mean to take a range?
Maybe like a stance or something.
What's okay, so you guys know free range chickens? Really? You know how chickens live in like really small cages? They're all crowded up together. But some people say that's unhealthy for you, right? Because the chicken stress. So free-range chickens, they they give them a free range. Instead of a cage, they make them run around and stuff, right? So until it's killed, the chicken is happy, right? And that's and free-range. So free-range chickens, free-range eggs. It's like a thing, right? So here it says there's certain lawless fancies, right? Okay, so I would just say these are, I mean, you could think of this as thoughts or whatever, right? So there are some lawless thoughts, but on this subject, this subject being men and women, the equality, I mean, the relationship between men and women, the inequalities and that kind of thing. On this subject, this thought, this lawless thought, takes a free range. It runs rampant, right? It's out of control. That's what he wants to say here. Okay. Okay. Are you cold? If you're cold, you can try that seat. That seat might be a little bit less cold. It's always going to be this cold because we have to. I mean, if we don't turn it on, it's going to be really humid, and since we have so many people in this small area, we need to keep it on. So just keep that in mind. Bring something to wear on top of your t-shirt or whatever, okay? So he wants to discuss this matter, right? Okay, he wants to discuss this matter, and then it says, okay, so you're not moving. There are people in Europe. Okay, so I want to see if these people have a stance, okay? So there are people in Europe who confounding together. What does it mean, confound? Huh? Confuse, yes. What's a similar word to confound, not except confuse? Conflate. You've heard of conflate, like conflate A with B or something like that. It's saying, yeah, well, the two are clearly different, but conflating A with B means they think, I mean, the person thinks it's some people think it's the same, right? When it's not. Conflating A with B. Confounding together the different characteristics of the sexes. Okay, so based on this word, we can know that this person who's writing this article does not agree with these people, right? It's implied that this person does not think the two sexes are different, right? I mean, he thinks they are different, but these people do not think they're different. So they think men and women are equal. These people, right? And then it would make of man and woman beings not only equal, but alike, right? Okay, so this is the opponent's view, right? And I feel like he's going to make a counter argument to this. They would give to both the same functions imposed on, okay, so this is elaborating on alike, right? Give them same functions. I don't know if they're jobs or, you know, what, something like that, right? Impose on them the same duties and grant to both the same rights, right? So this is still elaborating on alike, right? Their occupations, their pleasures, their business, right? So up till here, it's elaborating on alike, right? It may readily be conceived that by thus, does thus mean? Ujin, what does thus mean?
Like that.
No. I think I talked about this like 5 or 6 times. Tokju, what does thus mean? Huh? No. That by therefore attempting to? In this way, right? Like this. We talked about this, right? That by attempting like this, so he's talking about what he said before, right? So he's bringing that idea here, that by attempting to make one sex equal to the other, both are degraded. Okay, so here is his counter argument, right? So this is the consequence, okay? Degraded, but I don't know exactly what he means by degraded. And from so preposterous a medley of the works of nature, nothing could ever result but weak men and disorderly women. So I can say, okay, so this is what he means by degraded, weak men and disorderly women. Okay, so he talked about this. Okay, so there is that change happening right now. There are social changes that are making men and what used to be so different equal, right? So this change is occurring, but he wants to mention a specific group of people. I'll just say people in Europe, right? So people in Europe, what do they think? Men and women are equal, right? But what's the counter argument to this? Degraded. Both degraded, and what this means is weak men, disorderly women. Okay. By the way, I don't expect you to write this. I mean, in class, yes, but not when you're reading the passage, not when you're taking the test. I'm not saying you should make an outline of the passage next to your passage. This is just for your reference, right? Okay. Since we can't have the entire passage here. Okay, so let's go to the next part. It says, it is not thus. It is not like this, right? It is not like this that the Americans understand that species of democratic equality, which may be established between the sexes. So he thinks, okay, so the Americans think otherwise, okay? So I'll just say Americans. Okay, so what do the Americans think? Well, it's not this for sure, right? But what do they think exactly? It's going to be more nuanced than that. So let's take a look. They admit that as nature appointed such wide differences between the physical and moral constitution can be the makeup of something, right? And so if you say the physical constitution is talking about the body, if you say the moral constitution, yeah, it's how they perceive right and wrong, that kind of thing, right? Of man and women, her manifest design was to give a distinct employment to their various faculties. What in the world does this mean? Her design was to give a distinct employment to their various faculties? Well, what is this? What does this mean? Okay, it's talking in very abstract terms, so what should you do here? I mean, you do have a semicolon here, so you can decide to look at the next sentence first and then come back to it. Maybe it'll supplement your understanding. So take a look here, and they hold that improvement does not consist in making beings so dissimilar do pretty nearly the same things. Okay, so they think, hey, let's not make something so unlike each other do the same things. Let's not do that. Let's not do this, right? But in getting each of them to fulfill their respective tasks in the best possible manner. Okay, that's what they think. Okay, so first of all, they don't think men and women are alike, right? They don't think they're alike. They recognize the differences, and they say they should not be doing the same things, right? But what should they do instead? They should have respective tasks, right? So men should do what men are capable and willing to do. Women should do what they do best. That's what he's saying, right? The Americans have applied to the sexes the great principle. Okay, so you should ask yourself, okay, so what is that great principle? The principle of political economy, which governs the manufacturers of our age, right? Okay, so I guess this is a very up-to-date principle, right? So they're saying, oh, they're keeping up with that principle of political economy. I mean, you don't need to understand all of that, but it's that thing governs the manufacturers of our age, right? The industries of our age, right? By carefully dividing the duties of man from those of women in order that the great work of society may be the better carried on. So this is their end goal, I guess, right? This is their end goal that they're trying to serve, right? That they're trying to get at using this tool, making them do respective tasks, and eventually this is first the betterment of society itself, right? So who does he agree with? Okay, so that you can see based on his his word selection. He uses the word confound with these people in Europe. But for Americans, he say, oh, they applied the great principle. They applied the great principle so that the great work of society may be carried on, right? So it's implied that he sides with these people, right? So that's the first paragraph. I mean, that's the first passage. Okay. Okay, before we go to passage 2, any questions on this? Of course, no. Okay. Never ask questions, you guys. You guys never ask questions. Okay, passage 2. As society was constituted until the last few generations. Okay, so here, again, he's recognizing that before and after, that old and new, right? Okay, so until the last few generations, inequality was its very basis. Okay, that's how he defines inequality. Inequality is the foundation of something. Okay, so this is a reasoning that happens pretty often in history passages, right? Those of you who came to the history class, they use this reasoning a lot. Like something is the foundation of something else, right? They say, okay, what was that passage? Yeah, it says, wealth is the basis on which Americans should build upon. And he says, we shouldn't really strive for wealth. We should strive for something that's less materialistic, something that has to do with the mind and spirit, that kind of thing, right? So people use, it's used pretty often here. So it's saying inequality was at the basis of society. It was it was the basis. Association, and then we have a semicolon, so it's probably related to this idea, inequality being its basis. So if you say inequality is society's basis, you don't know exactly what he means, right? You get a sense of what he means, but you don't know exactly. Like, how do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? You should read here, right? Association grounded on equal rights scarcely existed. So it did not exist. Equal rights based on, relationships based on equal rights did not exist. To be equals was to be enemies. Two persons could hardly cooperate in anything or meet in any amicable relation without the laws appointing that one of them should be the superior of the other. So this was necessary. That's what he's saying, right? So you should get that thought. Like inequality was necessary for society to function. If we didn't have inequality, right? The equality meant it was to be enemies. So it's kind of like Korea. Whenever you meet someone, it's like, oh, how old are you? And like, okay, I'm your hyung, so call me hyung. Kind of thing, right? Okay, mankind have outgrown this state. Okay, so so I'm gonna say this is the old, right? This is what used to be the case. Inequality being at its basis, but now, we've outgrown, right? So okay, what's that going to be? Is that just going to say? It needs to be more nuanced than you just saying, okay, well, inequality is not its basis. Well, okay, yeah, sure, but he's probably going to elaborate a little bit more on that. And all things now tend to substitute as the general principle of human relations a just equality. Okay, so I'm just going to do this instead of the dominion of the strongest. Okay, so here, these are two contrasting ideas, so you should annotate it like this, right? But of all relations, that between, okay, so now here comes his point, right? Okay, so up till here was the new, right? So for the new, I'm just going to grab onto this. Just equality, right? Just equality is prevailing nowadays, he's saying. But what used to be the case is inequality at the basis. But of all relations, that between men and women, okay, so that refers to relation, right? Because he says of all relations. So we have many different relations, but he's saying of them, that between men and women. So in one of the relationships, there was a relationship between man and women, right? So he's talking about that being the nearest and most intimate and connected with the greatest number of strongest emotions. Okay, so a lot of emotions attached to this relationship was sure to be the last to throw off the old rule. Well, first of all, what's the old rule? We know, because we know that this is an old and new. Right? So the old rule is inequality being at its very basis, right? So let's just say this is inequality, right? So the relationship between man and women was the last to abolish this inequality. That's what it's saying, right? And receive the new. And then it says for, right? What does for mean? Please tell me. Please. Because, right? So what is this? What is this thing that's going to happen after here? How should we annotate this? Yeah, so this is the cause, right? So what's the effect? What's the effect, guys? The previous statement. What's the previous statement? Inji, what is this? Yeah. What was the last to draw off the old rule? No, the relationship between man and women, right? The relationship between man and women being the last to throw off the old rule, last to abolish that inequality. Why was it the last? Because this, right? And then you guys came to this sentence and you just gave up, right? And then you got a question on this part, right? All right, so who understood this sentence? In proportion to the strength of a feeling is the tenacity with which it clings to the forms and circumstances with which it has even accidentally become associated. So it turns out, okay, later on it turns out that you need to understand this sentence. Why? Because, I don't know, you have this question. Okay, just gonna take a look really quick. Okay, in passage 2, Mills most strongly suggests, okay, so it's a MSS, so you can make a little bit of a logical leap, right? You can make a little bit of an inference that gender roles are resistant to change. Okay, so he rephrased our effect here, that effect that we just read, right? Gender roles resistant to change. Relation between men and women last to draw off the old rule. It's the same thing. He just rephrased this, and then he asks us for the cause, right? You should be able to recognize this because that's the only cause and effect you have in this passage, right? And it's blatantly asking you for that cause and effect. You guys following? Okay. So what's our answer? It's basically asking you to rephrase that sentence after for. Do you understand? So let's take a look at the sentence. Who can tell me what this means? Hyunwoo, do you know what this means?
Maybe with terms like cling, might be that the genders are already set, I guess. So.
Okay, that if you distill the meaning, it could be like that, right? Yeah, it can be something like that. How should we do this? So now let's pretend like you're solving that question, and now you recognize that since we have this because here, this is our answer. So how will you rephrase this? Well, you need to break the sentence down then, right? So how do you break a sentence down? Inji, how do you? So what should we do? What was that? Oh, okay, good. Yeah, find the subject, verb, object, right? But how do we find the subject, verb, object? Okay, get rid of prepositional phrases, get rid of modifiers, get rid of relative clauses. So how does it start? In. It starts with an in. So what should you do? What is this if it starts with an in? Please, someone tell me. If it starts with an in, what is this then? Can we say it's the subject? Is it the verb? Huh? Yeah, yeah. Please. Yes. 아니, guys. What, you know this. Okay, so it's a prepositional phrase. In proportion, okay, and then we have another preposition, to the strength of a feeling. So this whole thing is a prepositional phrase, right? So what am I going to do? Okay, so don't think about this for now. Right? But I have a verb here, right? So this you need to take account of, right? Is the tenacity. Okay, so I have a noun, right? So this is probably the subject, right? Or I don't know. It's the object. I don't know. But so far we don't have anything, right? So this is the verb, and we have the tenacity, and I have with which, preposition which, right? Preposition plus which is what? Introduces a relative clause, right? You guys remember that? Preposition which? Do you guys remember the preposition which? Yeah, so this thing is modifying. So I have a subject and verb here, but this thing is going to modify the tenacity anyway, right? So this whole thing, so I still have a with which here. So this with which is going to modify the forms and circumstances. Do you see that? Okay, so, well, the only thing that I have left is the tenacity, right? Then what do I have? I mean, I know that this whole bit is modifying tenacity, right? Do you see that? I mean, this whole thing is modifying tenacity. So the only thing you have is a prepositional phrase, and you have is the tenacity. So what's that sentence? The tenacity is in proportion to the strength. That's the sentence, right? The tenacity is in proportion to the strength. So what is it suggesting? It's suggesting a correlation, right? So the tenacity, there's something called the tenacity, right? Okay, tenacity, but we don't know the definition of the tenacity. There's a whole bunch that follows after tenacity, right? But this tenacity is in a correlation with what? Strength of a feeling. Right? Now we need to define this tenacity. Well, what do you mean tenacity? Well, what does this it refer to then? Can it be tenacity? Well, of course it can't be tenacity, because this is modifying tenacity. That would not make any sense. Can it be a feeling then? Yeah, I think that would be right. So the feeling clings to the forms and circumstances. So this tenacity is a measurement of how strong a feeling clings to the forms and circumstances. I'll just say situation, right? A feeling clings to a situation. A feeling is attached to a situation, right? A feeling is attached to a situation, or I mean, you can say forms anyway, but I mean, forms is a little bit of abstract. So I just rephrase circumstances, right? Situation. Feeling is attached to a situation, but what kind of situation is that? With which the feeling has even accidentally become associated. So a feeling became accidentally associated with the situation, and the feeling clings to that situation. And the strength of that, the tenacity, is related to the strength, how strong it feels. Get it? Get it? All right, so let's go to that question then. So now we need to rephrase that thing. It's talking about, okay, so this tenacity is how strong a feeling clings to a situation. Feeling is attached to a situation. But that feeling itself was associated with the situation very accidentally, right? And these two things are in a correlation. So let's take a look. So who chose A here? Yeah, I thought so. Okay, so those of you who chose A, you just chose A because you are familiar with this wording, but this phrase, right? You know you read this, but it's not that part. This is clearly asking for a cause and effect. So you should have been thinking about that. You should have been thinking, okay, so this is clearly the effect. I need to find the corresponding cause to this effect. So of course it's not going to be that first part where inequality served at its basis. We're long done with that portion of the passage. We're done with that in line 49, right? Inequality being its basis. So why are you referring back to this part? It means that you're not reading. You're just looking at the words and you're just feeling the passage. Okay? That's why you went with A. Oh, this idea sounds familiar. It sounds like I read this, but did you even do this? Did you even do the old and new? You know what I mean? Because you're not supposed to be looking here at all, right? Okay. Are matters of deeply entrenched traditions. What does entrench mean? If something is entrenched, what does that mean? Yes, it can be that, right? So it's well within the foundation. It's just inside there, right? So tradition. Okay, why are we talking about tradition all of a sudden? So, but you can think, so since this is a most strongly suggest question, you should be thinking about the forms and circumstances, right? A feeling gets associated, and that feeling is probably the feeling that men and women are unequal, right? That feeling becomes associated with the situation and it grows stronger and stronger. Even it's accidentally associated. So this could be it. This tradition could be the forms and circumstances. So this is a possibility. You should be thinking about that. But even if you don't see this being the answer, you should eliminate all the other answer choices. Why? Because we're talking about forms and circumstances, feelings, tenacity, that kind of thing. Why in the world is this talking about legislative reforms? Legislative reforms means changing the law, right? So, we know that sentence is not about changing the law. We know that it's not benefiting people in power, right? It has nothing to do with that. So with just the process of elimination, you can get rid of 3 answer choices. And this one, although you're unsure of it, is the only one that you're left with, right? So that's how you should approach this question, right? Identify the cause and effect since it's asking for that, okay? Yes? Okay. Okay, let's go to the next part. The proper sphere. What does it mean? What does sphere mean? You can think of it as zone or area, something like that. The proper zone for all human beings, so where do the proper sphere, meaning where do they belong, right? Where do they belong, all human beings, is the largest and highest which they are able to attain to, right? So it's where they can realize all of their potential, right? That's what this is saying, right? What this is, so this is the proper sphere, right? What this is cannot be ascertained without, you can't make sure of that without complete liberty of choice. So without or unless, after without and unless, it's going to follow a necessary condition, right? So it's saying liberty of choice is necessary, right? So you need this in order to determine the proper sphere. In order for you to determine where all human beings belong, you need liberty of choice. That's what it's saying. Right? And then it says let. Okay, so if you say let, how should I annotate this? 은지, what, if I see a let, what is this? How should I annotate it? Huh? No. Good try. What is this? 우진.
The author's argument.
No. What is it, 덕주? Yes, prescription. We talked about this before. Should, must, need to. And in history passage, I said let or let us, right? What's a prescription? Something that gives us a suggested course of action, saying this is right, or arguing this something is right or wrong, right? We should protect the environment, right? We need to protect the environment. We must protect the environment. Let us protect the environment. It's a call to action, right? It's saying we need to do this, and that is likely to serve as the conclusion of the passage itself, right? If you're arguing for something hard enough, that's probably why you're writing the passage in the first place, right? So what does he say here? Let every occupation be open to all without favor or discouragement to any, right? Okay, so he's saying let's not discriminate. I mean, it's implied probably, I mean, based on sex. That's what he's saying. Let's not say this job is only open to men. Let's not say this job is only open to women. Let it be open to all, right? And employments will fall into the hands of those men and women who are found by experience to be most capable. Okay, so that will ensure that we get the most capable people in each job. If we open up the job for everyone, the most capable person will get that job, right? So it's arguing for a meritocracy, right? Meritocracy meaning you're judged based on your merit. You're judged based on your talents, right? Not based on your race or gender or whatever, right? There need be no fear. Okay, so you don't need to fear that women will take out of the hands of men any occupation which men perform better than they, right? Okay, so I mean, why are you worrying? Why are you worrying if you can perform better than women? There's no need to worry about this, right? It's just all based on merit, so don't worry about that. Let it be open to all people, and the most capable person will get the job. Each individual will prove his or her capacities in the only way in which capacities can be proved by trial. Okay, so like strong words like these. Okay, so I mean technically this is also a conditional. If you say the only way you can raise your SAT score is to study for it. So if it is a way to raise your SAT score, it is to study it, right? So if it can be translated into an if-then statement. But anyway, I mean, okay, if you're confused, you don't need to think about it. But it's a strong word. If you say the only way to something is something, right? So, I mean, just take note of this, saying, yeah, we should do it by trial. We should give everyone a go, right? You should let people try the job, and you should select the person that's best at that job, most capable. Okay, but to interfere beforehand by an arbitrary limit, okay, so he's probably going to say, I mean, he's saying, but interfering though, right? I mean, we know what interfere means. Interfere it would be the opposite of liberty of choice, right? Interfere beforehand by an arbitrary limit and declare that whatever be the genius, talent, energy, or force of mind, those faculties shall not be exerted or shall be blah, 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 blah. Wow, okay, that's really long, okay? But if you're confused with this long sentence, you should just try to identify the subject and verb, right? And the subject and okay, so here's the verb. Is not only is not only a blah 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 blah, but also most effectual way, right? So in the end, we get this verb and not only, right? So this sentence is whatever the subject is probably somewhere here, right? The subject is probably somewhere here, but it's saying it's an injustice, but also the most effectual way. Okay, so what's that subject? It's actually this, to interfere beforehand, right? To interfere beforehand is not only an injustice, but it's also the most effectual way. But I'm kind of confused here because the most effectual way sounds pretty positive, right? So if you read on though, of providing that in the sex or class so fettered, the qualities to be exercised shall not exist. Okay, so it's a negative, right? It's the most effective way to ensure that such talents will not exist. It's the most effective way to say, to ensure that the qualities will not exist. Right? So let's say, for example, you say, okay, women can't be singers now. Then you're robbing the world of, I don't know, like, who do you get? Beyonce. Is that too old? You're robbing the world of Beyonce if you say women can't be singers, right? So that's what he's saying. That's the most effective way of ensuring that the qualities do not exist, right? What about all of these? I mean, it's just. I mean, you can see that it's in a parallel relationship, right? But to interfere and declare that blah 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 blah, right? So I mean, it's all additional information, right? So this is an idea opposed to liberty of choice, right? What he wants is giving people all the choices, like opening up the jobs to everyone. But this is something opposite to that, opening up the job only for a select few, or discriminating based on gender mostly. That's what he's talking about. Okay, questions? Okay, so who chose A for? Close your eyes. Who chose A for 32? A, B, C, D? Huh. Okay, good. Do you not have a book? Huh? You should have told me. 죄송한데. Sorry. 저기서 이 책 하나만 교무실에 있거든요. 감사합니다. Okay, yeah, so it's elevate, right? How do we know though? Because, okay, so, all right. Don't disregard this question because it's easy. We're not doing this for the sake of the questions. You need to remember that. We're using these questions as a tool to hone your skill, okay? So what do we do for vocabulary and context questions? You need to replace the word, right? By the way, don't write on that book because yeah, you know what I mean, right? Yeah, for vocabulary and context questions, you need to replace the word simply and see if it fits, right? Perfectly. In line 9, will raise. Okay, so it's this part, right? Social changes will blank women and make her the equal of man, right? So your hint should be right here, equal of man. What used to be the case? Well, they're not at an equal plane, but now you want to make them equal. That's what you want to do, right? So that's why you need to say elevate, right? You need you need an elevation to make them make them into an equal status, okay? So implies that treatment of men and women as identical in nature would have which consequence? Okay, so this is very simple. Okay, so if you went back to the passage for this, you could go back, but your answer should be set in stone. Set in stone. So like very easily. Why? Okay, so men and women as identical in nature. So whose argument is this? You should know that this is the people in Europe's point of view, right? So it's this point of view, but the only thing that T implies about this is his counter argument. The only thing you can say is his counter argument. That's your only option. You don't have anything other to say than this, right? You should know that because that paragraph only contained these two ideas. So your answer needs to be degraded, aka weak men and disorderly women, right? So make up your mind before you go to the answer choice and just look for that. That's why it would be this, weak men and disorderly women, right? And you rephrase, it's rephrased here, right? So the line reference for this would be here, right? C. Okay, so who said A here for 35? I need you guys to close your eyes. Who said A? B? C? D? Okay, open your eyes. Okay. So we remember this. So whenever you can look for whenever you can look for contrasting ideas, right? You want to do that. Just equality versus dominion of the strongest, right? These two things are contrasting ideas, right? So dominion of the strongest and just equality. So a common point of confusion comes from, okay, so a lot of people choose ownership here, ownership, because you feel like, yeah, you know, that gets the idea across, right? But you made an unwarranted inference. You inferred that, oh, since, you know, it's, you know, we're talking about inequality, and so, you know, I feel like the strongest people are going to own the weak people. No, it's not about ownership. Ownership is about it's property and proprietor, right? That's what ownership is. Owning something means you have something. It doesn't. It's on a different spectrum. We're not talking about that. We're talking about status, like literally just status. Okay. That's why you need to say supremacy here. This is, you're pushing it if you say ownership. And this one, okay, so this one, of course, is C. So if you didn't choose C, I mean, okay, I can understand if you get 36 wrong, okay? But you should not get 37 wrong. If you're getting 37 wrong, it means you're not looking at the passage logically. You're just going by feel, right? This one, you definitely should have chosen C, okay? Both authors would agree, okay? Would most likely agree. Usually what happens, okay, so I told you guys about this. It doesn't happen all the time, but usually when two passages disagree and the passage asks you about what both authors would agree on, I said they would just say, well, there is such a thing, right? If, like for example, if they're disagreeing on whether people should be eating dog meat or not, they at least both agree that there is something called dog meat. They agree on the existence of that, right? So it could be an answer like that. I would say around like more than 50% of the time. But take a look here. Would most likely agree that the changes in gender roles, this one is actually a little bit more specific, right? We're talking about a certain key term here. Changes in gender roles that they describe would be, okay, so I mean, this one I don't really have a choice, right? If it just asked us in a broad term, if it just said both authors would most likely agree and just leave it all up to us, chances are it would be that answer. There is such a thing, right? But here, you need to go through all the answer choices. So let's take a look. Part of a broad social shift. So what this is saying is, you know, I mean, it's part of a really, I mean, it's only, like there's this broad thing and it's only part of this, right? That's what it's saying. And actually that's what both passages talked about, because we have that old and new, that democratic shift that's happening. So this one is okay. Provide benefit, unlikely to provide benefits. I mean, no, actually passage 2 would say there are benefits to changes in gender roles. Inevitable, we're not talking about the inevitability of anything. This one is just a completely irrelevant idea. At odds with the principles of American democracy. I don't know about this, because I don't know exactly about the principles of American democracy. Okay, so if you chose this, you got confused with that great principle bit. That great principle, but that one was one that governs political economy, and it's different. We never talked about the principles of American democracy. Okay. 39. Okay, so again, so for these kinds of questions, I said you should not make assumptions about the author. Okay, a lot of people say, you know, okay, T in passage 1 would most likely characterize the position, and you say, okay, this is my time to use my creativity, right? This is my time to be creative. This is my time to make guesses about this author. I think this guy, since he made a very logical argument, I think this guy's a very logical guy. Like he's like a really meticulous, calculating guy, so I'm going to choose the answer that seems like that. No, okay? You're a parrot. No one cares about your opinion. You're just regurgitating what the author said. Your point should exactly be the same as the author's. Okay? It's just asking you, what would the author say? And you respond with a direct point from the author himself. Okay? Do not use your imagination. Do not make inferences here. Although it might seem like it's asking you to do so, it's not asking you to do so. Okay? So no creativity, be a parrot. Okay? So passage 1 would say to passage 2, right? Passage 1 would say to passage 2. I would go even as far as to say you don't need to read this, because the stuff that passage 1 can say is pretty limited, right? The only stuff that passage 1 can say is this. This is it. You know what I mean? Let's go back to 65 to 69. What's 65 to 69? Let out every occupation open to be all. Okay, so I get what he's saying, right? So, I mean, of course, he would say no to this, right? Why would he say no to this? Because this would happen, right? Well, first of all, I know that he's going to say no, right? And another thing that I know he might say is you're gonna get this. You're gonna degrade both sexes, right? So this is my answer. This you can't go for you can't go off this. This is our answer. Okay. Less radical. Why are you talking about radicality at all? Well, why? No. It's just this. He's just going to disagree, and he's just going to say they're going to be degraded. Persuasive? No. Ill-advised? Yes. Okay, so he's going to say no to this. Compatible? What? I need to take a look at this. Compatible with economic... We're not talking about economic progress at all, right? So his point is both would be degraded. But let's take a look here. But consistent with a view... Oh, wait. a view held by some other advocates. Oh, there we go. So this is our answer. Why? Because he thinks this is a view that people in Europe have. So I can say C is the answer. Describes the ways that the two authors conceive of the individual's proper position. Proper position, okay, individual's proper position. I know, okay, I mean, this is a two-part answer choice, so I'm just going to look at the one that I'm more comfortable with first. I'm just going to, like, either I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to read all the passage 2 bits first. And then I'm going to take a look at the passage 1 bit after initial pass, right? What about, so individual's proper position. So this, you can immediately think about the proper sphere idea from passage 2. I feel like that would be the instant thing that would come to your mind, right? So what did passage 2 say about the proper sphere? I mean, like basically he was saying it should be a meritocracy, right? People should be judged based on their merit, not their gender or whatever else, right? Nobody should be prohibited from entering a certain job or whatever, that kind of thing, right? So Mill believes that an individual's ability, so this one is okay. Bill believes that class is not, okay, well, class is irrelevant. Believes that temperament, well, I don't know why he's talking about temperament. It should be determined by what an individual finds most, well, it's not about what they find most rewarding, it's who best performs it, most capable of it. So it's A. Let's take a look at this bit for a bit. T believes that an individual's position should be defined in important ways by that individual's sex. Yes, because that's the only thing that he can say. He's not allowed to say much because he didn't really say anything here. So A is right. Based on passage 2, Mill would most likely say that the application of the great principle of political economy to gender role has which effect. Okay, so let's take a look at this part. 38 to 39. Yeah, so it's talking about what the Americans are doing. Americans are kind of making a distinction between men and women, right? Making a distinction between men and women, and passage 1 is saying that's really good, right? They're really doing well. But what would passage 2 say to that? Passage 2 would say, it's that last part here, right? That would be that interfering. He would characterize this as that interference, right? And he would say that would be the most effectual way of guarantee that certain qualities will not exist in society. Okay, so that would be our answer. So A, it prevents many men and women from developing to their full potential. Yes, this is going along. It is in alignment with that idea at the very end. The proper sphere of all human beings, right, is the highest they can attain to. But if you interfere beforehand, that would be not giving them the right. It makes it difficult for men and women to sympathize. No, right? Furthers the cause of gender equality. Well, no, interfering is bad. That's what he would say. It guarantees that women take occupations that men are better suited to perform. No, whoever is better will get the job. If I mean, no. I mean, but this is irrelevant anyway. I mean, this one, it's talking about interfering. What would he say about interfering? I mean, this one is totally irrelevant. So A would be the answer here. Okay, let's take a break. Okay. Questions for the first passage? Okay, actually, not just the first passage, but just anywhere, I mean, all 44 of them. Yeah.
10.
3 and 40.
Huh?
3 and 40. Fine. One.
'So the maximum number that you can get wrong on this test, whoever you are, is 9. If you get more than 9 wrong, something's wrong. Everybody got less than 9 wrong. Okay, but honestly, yeah. Like I said, if you can't bet, okay, so I won't say life savings now. I won't say bet your life saving on something. I'll say bet your life on it. Okay, so if you get it wrong, you die. Okay, so if you can say, yeah, I'm pretty sure that none of these are the answers. I'm 100% sure I eliminated all 3, and I know I'm 100% sure that this is right. Then you can bet your life on it. If you win, you get 2 lives. 2 lives. No, well, anyway, like you should be able to do that. Even if you have a 99% certainty that you're gonna get it right, if there is that 1% of uncertainty in it, you won't bet your life on it. Okay. So if you get more than 9 wrong on this test, you're doing something wrong. Okay? It means you need to review then. Okay? So let's take a look at number 3. You can't do anything about this. So, I mean, they have being here, and all 3 answer choices have being here, so you can't eliminate all 4 like we do normally. So you need this. You need this. But I guess you can get rid of this one though, because you have another being here, right? Okay, so let's take a look. In addition to being unsightly and odorous, okay, well, this is a front modifier, and then we have these A, B cause oxygen depletion. Then it says oxygen depletion kills. Okay, so we have a common denominator here, right? We see oxygen depletion here. we see it here. My initial instinct, like right away, is just put a comma here and just modify this depletion and just bring this whole bit to modify this, right? I mean, that would make things pretty simple. So if you have, these kinds of questions, it's really, really easy. If you see this common denominator, like the sentence ends with a certain word and it begins with a certain word, then it's really easy. You just make it a modifier, right? So my initial instinct is just look for that, right? Let's take a look at B. Oxygen depletion, and then it says the algal blooms cause oxygen depletion that kills. Okay, so it's technically not incorrect. The grammar itself is okay, but you have two clauses, so I'm not entirely sure about this. What about this one? And oxygen depletion caused by blah 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 kills. Okay, so I mean, I have this whole bit, and also I have two clauses. I'm using a coordinating conjunction here. What about this one? Yeah, this one is doing exactly what we talked about. This one is just having the second sentence modify this bit, which is okay here. So D would be the answer. Let's take a look at 5. Best transition from the previous paragraph to this one. Okay, so we need to take a look at the previous paragraph. Okay, so the previous paragraph is here. Okay, so we need to take a look here. Say they were investigating possible causes. Okay, so this was the objective of their study, right? So they were doing this, right? Blah 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 blah. Oxygen depletion does this. And then just weeks after the scientists added the nitrates and phosphates, the water, blah, 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 turned bright green. So this is probably our result. It was thick and something like this. So this is why they did this study, and they kind of explain whatever science that's behind it, and then they state the result, right? Okay, and then we go to the next paragraph, right? Now, I do wanna take a look a little bit at this paragraph. So it says one mission of the experiment lakes area is to conduct research. Actually, wait, let me see. Am I looking at the right thing? Does this go from here to here? Is this okay? Is this right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I don't know. Okay, let's take a look. So it's talking about one mission is to conduct research that helps people better understand threats to the environment. Okay, so this is one of their goals. The scientists divided the lake in half by placing. Well, first of all, what's the lake? What does the lake refer to? I don't know actually. I don't have a lake that's mentioned before this. Okay. So what you need to do, no. Well, this one, no, I mean, you can't do that. You can't say this, it's this. They're done with the experiment, right? It's talking about another process here. Why would you do another thing? You know what I mean? Okay, so it can't be the same thing because, I mean, we had the results all here. It's done. This experiment is done. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so the experiment is done, and it's talking about another mission. So it's something that's in the middle, and then now they're going by another process. So you need at least something that mentions this. That's my first instinct. Okay, so no, guys, wasn't this sentence underlined? Guys, you need to tell me. I can't see it. So anyway, so we have all the results here. So it's still same thing applies. We discussed all the result here, and next time they're talking about another process. So you can't just continue off of that. Okay. So I need something that can come in the middle. So obviously it's not going to be A, because why are they talking about the mission? Experimental lakes area is located in a region. Okay, I mean, we're jumping into another process, so I don't know how this connects to that idea. To isolate the cause of the algae, Schindler and B performed another experiment. Okay, so this, yeah, there you go. Then this can be the start of that process, and we can know what the lake refers to. So this one is a possible candidate. The process by which water becomes enriched by dissolved nutrients, such as blah, 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 is, no. This one is, it doesn't introduce that process. So it should be C here. Okay, wait. I don't have the answer keys with me, so. Yeah. I mean, in the next part, we still see Lake 226, which is not the one mentioned in the previous paragraph. So, yeah, it should be right. So C is right. Uh, 10. Second policy outcome. So it's basically asking you to choose a second example, I guess, because the previous sentence, it's talking about what? It's talking about a first policy outcome, right? So what's the first policy outcome? Legislators in Canada passed laws banning phosphates in laundry detergents, right? Okay, so what was the research's result? This is the result. It said it demonstrated a clear correlation between phosphates and the growth of blue-green algae. So this is known to be harmful, right? And because of this, they passed laws banning phosphates. So I need another policy that recognizes the dangers of phosphate or whatever, right? Okay, so let's take a look. A says, continue to develop blooms. Well, no, this is not a policy outcome. We need some kind of policy. B, the United States, many individual states have also adopted legislation. So this one is okay. I'm going to stop looking. Initiated a study. No, it's not a study. Aerial photos. No. Okay, so it needs to be B, right? So policy outcome. Okay, main point of the paragraph. Is this the underlined portion? Okay, until achieved. Okay, the committee was charged with, so they had the responsibility of saving the tower without ruining its aesthetic. So I guess we have two parts, right? So saving the tower, but not this, right? Do not ruin its aesthetic, right? But save the tower. Okay. Let's take a look. Since it's talking about the main point of the paragraph, you need to take a look at the entire paragraph. Okay. So it says the committee's first attempt to reduce the angle of the tower's tilt. Okay, so on the tower's north side to create blah, 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 was derided. Okay, so the first attempt derided because the bulky weights ruined the tower's appearance, right? So it didn't satisfy this condition. The attempt at a less visible solution, sinking anchors, blah, 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 almost caused the tower to fall. Okay, so I guess it's just talking about failed attempts. Okay, I mean, I guess that's what we have, right? We're talking about 2 attempts at doing this. Okay, so let's go through the answer choices. A says, which no one had yet managed to achieve. Okay, but that has nothing to do with the 2 attempts, right? So I need at least something that is related to, that is relevant to the 2 attempts, but talking about something that happened beforehand that's not related to this. Okay, so not this one. B, although not everyone on the committee agreed completely. If this were to be the answer, I would need to talk about that disagreement in the following parts. But I don't see any of that, so this is gone. Which meant somehow preserving the tower's tilt while preventing that. Okay, so we did talk about the tilt, reducing the angle of the tilt, right? Which meant somehow preserving the tower's tilt while preventing that tilt from increasing and toppling the tower. Okay, so preserve the tilt and preventing negative consequences. Yeah. This one does support it. Why? Because the first attempt was going against this actually, and then it says it was derided because they did this. So I mean, this one somewhat relates. What about D, which included the pristine white marble finish? So this one is completely unrelated. I don't see any of that. So anything that's even remotely relevant here would be C. After advocate, you need a noun, okay? So that's how the word is used. Advocate using soil attraction is okay, since this is used as a noun here. Advocate to use, we don't say advocate to something. Advocates the use, advocated the use of soil attraction. If it were phrased like that, I would have at least thought about it. But it's advocates the using of that. We don't necessarily need an article here. So I would go with A here. Advocated using soil extraction. (22) Sentence 5. Okay, so Berland advocated using soil extraction, and then it defines soil extraction for us. So this is our sentence in question, right? Okay, so let's go back to this part. Enter committee John. Okay, so if you say enter someone, it means yeah, just introducing someone, right? So it's introducing John Berland. He is a blah, 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 right? Okay, well, whatever. And then it says Berland began a years-long process of drilling out small amounts of soil from under the tower. Okay, so he began the process, right? And this was drilling soil from under the tower. And then twice daily, Berland evaluated these movements and made recommendations. Okay, so it's talking about what he did. So it's just continuing on what he did. By 2001, almost 77 tons of soil had been removed, and the tower's tilt decreased. Okay, so it was a success, right? Kind of thing. Well, anyway. What about this sentence? Well, I would imagine you would use this sentence towards the very beginning, because it is introducing a method that he used, right? And removing. Okay, so now if I take a look at the definition, it's about removing small amounts of soil. So I think I remember seeing something like this in sentence 2 or 3. So I need to put this sentence before that. So where would that be? So here I see that. Began a year-long process of drilling out small amounts of soil from under the tower. Yeah, so it needs to be before sentence 2, right? So before sentence 2. So A, right? after sentence 1. Okay, so this one is a traditional example of colloquial language versus formal language. Okay, amping up, that's too casual. Okay, same for revving up. Okay, arousing would just be the wrong word to use here. Okay, because we're talking about boosting medical college enrollments. That's what we're talking about, right? We want to increase this. That's what we want. So bolstering would be the right word to use here. Okay, so this is a combined sentence question. Okay, popular, these two sentences, okay, starting from here. Okay, popular film franchises are often rebooted in an effort to make their characters and stories fresh and relevant for new audiences. Did you guys watch like the really old Batman movies? The Tim Burton Batman movies? Who watched that? You did? Just like, okay. Do you guys know about it? Do you guys know Jack Nicholson? Okay, just checking. Yeah, so they're rebooted in an effort to make their characters and stories fresh and relevant for new audiences. Okay, so rebooted. This is the first sentence. Superhero comic books are periodically reworked to try to increase their appeal. Okay, this one is just completely different, right? This one is talking about film franchises. This one is talking about comic books, and they're talking about it being reworked. Okay, so the first thing is I don't see any relationship here, right? I mean, no relationship is specified here. If I could say like likewise here, I mean, if I saw this, right, I would know that it's like a similar sentence. But one question, can you add, even if you don't see a relationship specified between the two sentences, can you add that here? Is that okay? Who says it's okay? Like, say for example, like I just had like two plain sentences as opposed to having like a but here. Okay, if I have a but here, I know the two are in a contrast relationship, right? So something like this happened, but and then I'm trying to combine this, and one of the answer choices used an although and suggested a contrast relationship. I'm asking if this is possible. Who thinks this is possible? We can do this. Who think this is not possible? Okay, I specifically talked about this. What did I say? I specifically talked about this like I think at least 5 times. It is possible, okay? You can add a relationship as long as it's correct, as long as it's logical. So even if the two sentences don't say it's a contrast relationship, even if I don't have a but here, you can say, hey, these two sentences are actually in a contrast relationship. Then you can add an although. That's what I'm saying. It's okay for you to add subordinating conjunctions or whatever to add a relationship here. Okay, so you can add a relationship here also, right? So what is it talking about? Okay, so it's talking about a similarity between the two things, right? Film franchises are rebooted and comic books are also reworked, right? So it's talking about two similar ideas. So you can add that. Okay. So with that in mind, I'm just going to take a look. So the first thing I'm going to look for while I'm reading through this, the answers are really long. So I just want to look at the grammar and the meaning first. If the meaning is changed, right? If it says film franchises are periodically reworked or something like that, if it conflates between the two sentences, like then I want to get rid of that. This, in terms of meaning, this is our Bible, except the fact that I can add a relationship, okay? So you don't want to change that. And if it's grammatically incorrect, of course, it's the wrong answer. So let's take a look. In an effort to make their characters and stories fresh and relevant for new audiences. Okay, so it's actually this part, right? The modifying bits of the first sentence. Popular film franchises, which are often rebooted, are similar to, which are periodically reworked to try to increase their appeal to contemporary readers. All right, so actually this is changing the verb, right? This itself, the two sentences, they're not trying to openly talk about the similarity. They want to talk about being rebooted and this being reworked. So changing the verb and just saying are similar to, that's a little bit too much. Although I can add that relationship. So I'm not so sure about this, right? I don't want to completely eliminate it just in case something really bad happens. I get like really terrible answer choices, but I'm just going to say, okay, I'm not so sure about this. Probably not, right? But just leave it alive. And then it says, just as popular film franchises. Okay, this is actually good. This actually starts off pretty good, right? Just as popular film franchises are often rebooted in an effort to make their characters and story fresh and relevant for new audiences. So it's using that subordinating conjunction to convey the fact that these two things are happening in a similar manner, right? So and do I have I just need to check if I have any alteration in terms of its meaning. They're rebooted in an effort. So this is the first sentence verbatim. So it's okay. And then periodically reworked to try to increase their appeal. Okay, so this one is pretty good, right? And the difference between this and this is the point of emphasis in the two sentences, right? I mean, this one just mentions the relationship in a brief manner, but this one is saying like, this is the thing, the similarity, pointing out the similarity is what I want to do. That's a little bit too much here, right? So what about C? Superhero comic books are periodically reworked to try to increase their appeal to contemporary readers. Okay, this is the second sentence. While popular film franchises are often rebooted in an effort to make their characters and stories fresh and relevant. Okay, so it's using a while. It's okay. It's okay, except the fact that, well, first of all, they changed the order. I'm not sure why you would change the order. If you change the order, I don't know how that's going to go, because this is actually about comic books, this passage. And in the following parts, you're going to be discussing comic books, but what happens if you end with talking about film franchises towards the end of this sentence? It's just kind of off, right? And not to mention, just as would be better than while here in terms of specifying the relationship. So probably not this. What about D? Are much like, okay, so no. Well, first I have a being here, and same problem as the first one. It's saying are similar to, and this one is saying are much like. So that one's not being subtle at all about the relationship. It just changed the verb, right? So I don't want to do that. So it's B here. Okay. Writer wants a conclusion to the sentence and paragraph that logically completes the discussion of the Silver Age. Okay, so well, this is a really long question, so be really careful. You need to choose an answer that satisfies all the conditions mentioned here. So you want to take a careful look here, okay? So it's talking, so you need to look at the sentence and the paragraph, and you need to logically complete. So it's not based, so logically complete is different from main idea, right? Main idea is what? It's just basically summarizing what happened. But if you say logically complete, it's saying you can come up with some new information as long as it naturally flows, right? It doesn't need to be something that's directly mentioned before. That's what a logically complete means. Okay, so this one is okay. I mean, not okay. I mean, this one you need to take account of, and provides an effective transition into the next paragraph. Okay, so you also need to look. So you need to look at a lot of different things, right? All right. So let's take a look. So is this the beginning of that paragraph? Is this? Yeah? Yeah, okay. So let's take a look. So it's talking about the Silver Age, right? It's marked by characters that, though somewhat simplistic, provided with an origin story, often involving scientific experiments gone wrong. Okay, so it's just talking about the characters in the Silver Age, and then it says, in addition to supervillains, the soon-to-be iconic characters of the age, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so these are some examples, how to cope with mundane, real-life problems. Okay, so this is a characteristic, I guess, for them, including paying the rent, blah, blah, blah. Interior lives were richer, right? Okay, so a little bit, the characters were a little bit more three-dimensional, right? They weren't just superheroes. They had all their real-life problems and stuff like that. That's the Silver Age. Although sales remain strong for Golden Age. So, okay, so here's our, is this the underlined portion? Subsequent decades? This one? Okay, so this one is in a contrast relationship. So that's why it asked you to logically complete the sentence, right? So it's in a contrast relationship. This paragraph was talking about what? It was talking about the Silver Age, right? It was talking about the Silver Age, and it was saying like they had real life problems and stuff like that. The characters were a little bit richer. Characters richer. Okay? So so I guess he wants to make a contrast between the Golden Age characters and the Silver Age characters here, and that needs to also connect with the paragraph that comes after this. So okay, let's take a look first at this sentence. Although sales remained strong for Golden Age stalwarts Superman and to a lesser extent Batman. Okay, so it's talking about sales. So probably you would need to talk about sales. That's my first instinct. Okay, maybe I need to talk about the sales for Silver Age ones, right? So it's probably going to say, yeah, these were, the sales remained pretty strong for these. Maybe the Silver Age didn't sell well, or maybe it can say the Silver Age sold even better, something like that. So that's what I need to check in the next paragraph, right? In the next paragraph, it says, more transformations. Is this the next paragraph? More transformations would take place in the medium as the Silver Age gave way to the Bronze and Modern Ages. Okay, so next paragraph is talking about another transition. It's talking about Silver Age giving way, right, to the next generation. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at A. Subsequent decades would show the enduring appeal of these characters. Okay, so these characters would refer to Superman and Batman then. I'm not interested in this at all because it doesn't talk about the Silver Age. I mean, at least we need to talk about the Silver Age. What about B? The distinctions between later stages of comic book history are less well defined than the ones between the Golden and Silver Age. Okay, so this one, I mean, I would need to take another look at the following paragraph to think more deeply about this. But I mean, my initial instinct is, you know, if this were to be the answer, it would be a really complicated, really complex passage. So I'm not gonna think about this for now. What about C? Readers increasingly gravitated to the upstarts as the 1960s and the Silver Age drew to a close. Okay, so if I end this with the close, it's going to connect with the next part, right? As I say, more transformations would take place, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So this one is pretty good, right? So the sales remained pretty good for these. They gravitated towards the gravitated towards the upstarts being the Silver Age characters, the new and upcoming, right? So this one sounds pretty good. These characters themselves underwent significant changes okay, so if this were to be the answer, the next paragraph would have to discuss these changes because this would serve as a kind of guideline sentence that introduces the information that follows. So D would not be the answer, right? So if I just want to check the next part. If I want to, I just want to check if the next paragraph talks about distinctions a lot, right? That's the only scenario in which B would be the answer. But if I take a look, it's not necessarily about the distinctions between so, I mean, distinctions between later stages of comic book history. I mean, you could be, I guess the reason why you would be confused with B is because of this part. But this one is not talking about the distinction between more distinguishable. It's talking about the success of the transition. So this one is irrelevant. So the answer would be C here. Okay, other questions? None? Okay, then let's take a look at that test again, okay? That test you guys did over the weekend. You didn't bring the test? No, I told you. I said, what do I need to tell you? Who else didn't bring a test? Okay, go ask for it. Okay, so before we take a break, I'll just take a brief look at passage 2. This is the passage that you should go through really quickly, okay? I'm talking like reading this passage in like 3 minutes. Okay, you shouldn't be spending like, okay, so I talked about this before, but 12 minutes of passage, that's bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. All the passages, like they're so different in terms of difficulty, right? So you can't do this. Like for some passages, I would even be okay with you spending like even like 17 or 18 minutes. Like some passages, even if you said you need that amount of time, I'm not saying it's ideal, but I would be okay with it, right? As long as you can decrease your time in other passages, like these, right? So especially when you're reading the second passage, and the second passage is not opinionated, okay? If the second passage does have an opinion, it would be a little bit more difficult, but still that's a lot easier than the fifth passage, usually. Okay, sometimes the fifth passage is going to be like a really short passage, in which case the third passage and fourth passage would be a lot more difficult. But this one, I mean, it should be easy for you, okay? So let's take a look. So it's talking about, emotions, what neuroscience can and can't tell us about how we feel. Okay, so it's going to, I guess, talk about two things, right? It's going to be talking about the possibilities, and also it's going to be talking about the limitations. Something happening outside?
I don't think you can open the door.
Why can't you open the door? Okay, it's going to be about neuroscience, by the way. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so the trap that you can fall into is, again, reading all the processes. Okay, if it asks you a question about the process, come back to it. Okay, you don't need it. You just want answers here. You just want answers, and if it gives you significances, that's where the questions are going to be. So let's take a look. Okay, so she wanted to find out. Okay, so it gives you the question right off the get-go, right? She wanted to find out what? Okay, it's a whether. So it's whether A or B, right? Okay, it's going to be, okay, is it going to be this or is it going to be this? Whether the brain operates by different mechanisms when it is exposed to a situation that is real as opposed to one that is entirely fictional. Okay, so it's talking about these two scenarios, right? So it's talking about if you face a real situation versus if you face a fictional situation, will you have different mechanisms or no, right? Will you have different mechanisms? Will this be different? Will the reaction be different in your head, right? That's the point of comparison, right? Okay, so is it different or no? So that's what you want to find out. So that should be your focal point. Just get that point and move on. Now what's happening? You're not reading the process, okay? You can skim through it. I'm not saying just completely skip it. You can skim through it and look for some irregularities if there are any, if you get like a premature results or whatever. But you just want to find out. So now you're just saying, okay, is this different? Okay, so is it different or no? So that's your question, right? That's what you're trying to find out as you read. So she designed an interesting fMRI-based experiment. So this is going to be our process, right? Okay, so and then it's going to be about real or fictional characters. Okay, so that's what you got, and then you're moving on. Okay, so participants were shown one sentence written scenarios. I don't care. So some people actually read this and they're recreating the experiment itself in their heads. That's useless. Okay, don't do that. Okay, skim. Okay, I see Cinderella. Okay, yeah, that's a fictional character, and I see George Bush. Okay, so that's the real character, right? If they could indeed happen in the physical reality of the world we live in, okay, whatever. How does the brain operate when assessing these two types of scenarios? Okay, the results were intriguing. Okay, so now start reading. Okay. Common to both types of situation was some level of mental activity. Okay, so this is the similarity, right? In parts of the brain, such as the hippocampus. Okay, so now you're just circling the key words that you need to focus on. Okay, so hippocampus that are at work when we in general recall facts or events. Yeah, this is the definition for the hippocampus, and just move on. Don't think about it, right? Such activity was detectable regardless of the nature of the scenario. Okay, so nature of the scenario doesn't matter. Informative, interactive, whatever. I don't care. Okay, so nature, so we have these two things, interactive or informative, but I don't care. Don't think about this. Just annotate it and move on, right? However, there were a few striking finer distinctions. Okay, there we go. So these two things are the ones that I want to know, right? Difference. What's the difference? Blah, 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 blah. And these depended on the type of character involved. Okay, so it didn't talk about the difference yet. It's probably going to talk about the difference in the next part, right? So what was the similarity? They had some level of mental activity in the hippocampus, right? What's the definition for the hippocampus? Don't remember that. Don't remember that. Come back to that later if you need it. Just say, here's the definition. Just annotate it. Don't cloud your brain. Don't cloud it. Just, you need to be done with this in 2 or 3 minutes, this thing, okay? Don't spend more than that. Okay, and then it says, when exposed, so now we're gonna be talking about the differences, right? So what was the answer to our question? I mean, Anna Abrams wanted to find out whether the response was different or not, and yeah, there were differences, right? Okay, anyway, when exposed to scenarios featuring blah, 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 the brain involved the AMPFC. So I don't underline this part, just do this, right? AMPFC and PCC. Do I even know what this is? Okay, don't be intimidated by this. It doesn't even matter. Like, do you need to know what these are? No, just call them A and P if you want. Like, no one cares. Okay, so we're talking about the differences here, right? Okay, so AMPFC and PCC, and then AMPFC and PCC are, don't care, I don't care. This is the definition. Okay, if it asks you a question about this, then come later to this definition. Just annotate it. Don't cloud your brain, come on, okay? So, so this was when you're faced with the real person, okay? So now in the big picture, we're talking about the differences between a real person and a fictional character. So here's the difference. Real person, AP, right? Fictional character, we're featured, the brain responded somewhat differently. Okay, so okay, start talking, like be impatient with this guy. Parts of the lateral, blah, 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 IFC were more active. Okay, there you go. The IFG, okay? IFG is thought to provide, okay, definition, I don't care. Move on, right? So I think we got the difference now. The difference is for real people, I get AP, and for fictional characters, I get I, right? That's it, okay? That's what you need to get. And then it says, the fact that George Bush was linked to personal memory retrieval, but Cinderella was not. Okay, well, this is my first time knowing about this, right? I mean, linked to personal retrieval. I mean, yeah, you're learning stuff. I mean, it's probably linked to all the definitions that we have, but it kind of sums it up here. So yeah, just I guess you can grab that, right? So famous real people are related to personal memory, but Cinderella was not. But what does it say? Led the researchers to think that, okay, so think that is what? If you say, if the scientists start thinking, what is that? Significance, right? So this is something that you, of course, this is the important part, right? So what do they think? A crucial difference when assessing real or fictional scenarios might lie not so much in the degree of realness. Okay, so it's not about the realness, just exit, right? It's because it says it's not, this is just how it's going to be, right? Not realness, but in their relevance. Okay, so you got that. That's your significance, right? Okay, it's not realness, it's relevance. And then it says, to test this hypothesis, okay, have like a big transition here, okay? Because this passage is taking a major turn here. Do you see this, right? So what was their hypothesis? It's not the realness, it's the relevance, right? So now, and then we're moving on to experiment number 2 here. That's what you should be annotating, okay? So to test this hypothesis, what is that hypothesis? It's not the realness, it's the relevance. So now what are you thinking? You're just thinking, okay, is this true or no? Right? That's it. Is this true or no? Just tell me. Is this true or no? Is this right? Just be impatient with this guy. Just tell me. Just tell me. I don't care about what you're doing. I don't care about what you're testing. Just tell me if this is true or no. Right? Okay. Let's go. They peered into the brain. Okay, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. However, this time I don't care. Characters involved in the scenario were ranked. Okay, I don't care. Right? I guess they had different degrees. I don't care. Whatever. High personal relevance. Well, okay, so yeah, we're testing for relevance, right? Whatever. As predicted. Okay, so start reading. Start reading here, right? As predicted, the activation in the AMP was indeed proportionally modulated by the degree of relevance. Okay, so as predicted, it was right. Relevance is right, right? It depends on the relevance, right? Okay, so the answer is yes. Their hypothesis was right. You got that, right? It was highest in the case of friends and family and lowest in the case of, okay, so this is the result. So just annotate this, right? Result. Okay, and then it says the researchers gave the following explanation. Okay, good. Have a big transition here. Okay, so this is now a 3-part passage. Do you see that? Okay, so first we had an experiment. Then what? Because of the first experiment, we got a certain significance, right? First experiment and then the significance, and this in turn became a hypothesis that they wanted to test, right? In the second experiment, right? And they tested it, and then it turned out to be true, right? And then after that, what happens? They give us an explanation. That's it, right? Okay, so let's take a look. So what's the explanation? When you encounter real characters, even if you have never met them, they will. Now I do want to start understanding though. That now is the time to slow down if you have to, right? Okay. When you encounter real characters, they will integrate into a wide, comprehensive, and intricately connected structure in the conceptual storage of your mind. Okay, so I mean, do you know what that means? Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. Okay, don't think about that. Why? Worst case scenario, you're just gonna get a rephrase question. You just need to rephrase this. So you know what I mean? Like, okay, comprehensive, intricately, blah, 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 conceptual storage, whatever, right? Just circle a few words, move on. You are familiar with their basic behavioral features as human beings. You know more or less how they think. Okay, so I think you're being repetitive. By contrast, your mind is not equally familiar. Okay, so here's the difference. So it's kind of a comparison here, right? So real characters, yeah. Because you know a lot about them, you're familiar to them, this thing happens, whatever this is. And for fictional characters, not so much. No matter how much we know about the world of a fictional character, there will still be something alien and inscrutable. Okay, so alien and inscrutable. Okay, so what? So what? What do you need to say about that? You may have read all the books about a fictional character, but the amount of information you have gathered about that character is still definitely limited compared with the wealth of information that is available to you about members of your family. Okay, so about real people. Okay, I want to do this. Why? This is a comparison. This is a really explicit comparison, and they will ask you questions about this. Why? Because this passage itself is about comparisons. It's about fictional, real, fictional, real, fictional, real, fictional, real. This one is mentioned explicitly, okay? So if I don't get a question on this, I was going to say, I was going to say something crazy, but I don't want to bet. I actually don't remember if it's in the questions or not. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be in the questions. I'm pretty sure it's going to be in the questions because, you know, if you try making test questions, like, I mean, if you have enough time, you should try it sometimes. Try getting a passage and then try making your own questions. The only points that you can ask questions are the points that we talk about usually. I mean, it's really hard to ask other questions. Okay, so anyway, limited compared with the wealth of information, blah, blah, blah. Okay, basically, I love this. I love words like this. Basically, in other words, simply put, in short, in conclusion, so good, right? It's just basically, I mean, if you had a hard time understanding what happened before that, just grab on here, right? In order to understand a fictional character, you need to dig deeper into your imagination. Okay, so fictional character, imagination, because you don't have points of reference in your network than are real, relevant people. Okay, so basically, you need to use your imagination when you're thinking about fictional characters. You don't have any references, right? Okay. So let's take a look at a few questions. Okay. So number 17, I feel like this one, if I have to choose, I would say this one is relatively more difficult than others because it feel like, okay, like you don't know where to look, kind of thing. Okay, so let's take a look. The brain stores information about famous real people. Okay, so just try to think about, like, I mean, just try to use what you have in your brain instead of going back to the passage. At least do an initial pass, get rid of the answers that you know are not the answer choices, okay? So you distilled all the necessary information. You need to have confidence in yourself, okay? Like if you feel like you missed a lot of parts, you're not gonna have that confidence. And if you read an answer choice, you're like, oh, did this show up actually? Like, no, but you need to be sure of yourself. We took account of the passage in like pretty well, okay? So let's take a look. In order to allow efficient retrieval later, you need to be able to recognize the fact that we did not talk about retrieval, like efficient retrieval. Like, is this a thing? Like, this? No, it's just not mentioned. We don't talk about this. Okay. What about B? Exactly as it stores. What? What? Exactly as? Did we ever see this kind of comparison where something was exactly the same and the comparison was between famous real people and friends or family members? Was there anything like that? They're exactly the same? No, we don't have that comparison. Okay? What about C? In different areas depending on the type of contact. No! Type of contact? Like, okay, so if you actually met George Bush, but you didn't meet Bill Clinton, but they're both famous people, so it's different? No, we didn't have that we didn't have that distinction, right? In a network of memories broader in scope. Oh, I think I remember that. I remember something about comprehensive and blah, blah, blah compared to fictional, right? So yeah, there you go. Okay, we'll take a break, and then after we come back, we'll take a look at passage 3 and 5, okay? Okay, let's take a look at this passage. Genes that turned wildcats into kitty cats. Okay, so there was a change. Wildcats turned into kitty cats, quote unquote. Okay, but there is something responsible for that. There is that cause, I guess. So we will be talking about that cause that made that change happen. Okay, from this is the before, this is the after, right? Okay, place a house cat. Okay, so I guess kitty cat means house cat, right? Place a house cat next to its direct ancestor, the Near Eastern wildcat, and it may take you a minute to spot the difference. It may take you a minute to spot the difference. What would that mean? You need, like, is it saying it's going to take a while, or is it saying like you can spot the difference quick? Which one is it? Okay, if you can't make that split second decision, okay, just don't make that decision and just read on, okay? If it just doesn't come to you instantly, okay, if you can't get that nuance, you're wrong, okay? So just read the next part. They're about the same size and shape, and well, they both look like cats. So it means there is no difference. There is not much difference. There is not much noticeable difference. But the wildcat is fierce and feral, whereas the house cat, thanks to nearly 10,000 years of domestication, is tame and adoptable. Okay, so the physical difference is not so much, right? Both look like cats. So this is the similarity, this is the difference. You should be writing this down, okay? While you're reading, you should be annotating this way. If it doesn't show, if you didn't annotate it like this, I don't know what you're annotating. Like it's doing like a very explicit comparison. You should be able to visually express this. I'm not saying exactly like this, but you should have taken notice of this. Okay, you shouldn't just cloud your passage with unnecessary annotations. Just this, right? Enough to have become the world's most popular pet. Now scientists have begun to pinpoint the genetic changes. Okay, I mean, this is what the title suggested, right? What made this happen? That drove this okay, so they're saying, okay, what is the cause, right? What is and they're probably going to discuss this in the passage. I don't know so much about this right now. They're just briefly mentioning it. Genetic changes that drove this remarkable transformation. The findings, based on the first high-quality sequence of the cat genome, could shed light on how other creatures become tame. What's this sentence? What is this sentence talking about? Implication, right? You should be able to spot this in a second. This is the implication. This is why this is relevant to us. This is the importance of this study. You know what this is, right? So here you have that implication. Why this study matters, right? You can gain insight into other creatures also. How other creatures became tame, right? Okay, but when you're reading, you should be thinking about this mostly, right? And it's going to, I guess, maybe they're going to have a study, okay? It may or may not, okay? But anyway, it is some kind of recent development, right? Okay, so let's take a look. This is the closest thing to a smoking gun we've ever had. Okay, what does a smoking gun mean?
An important revelation.
Nope. Okay, don't make any guesses. Okay, if you don't know, you should not be making guesses. Okay? Does anybody know for sure what a smoking gun is? Do you know what it is? It means that it's hot evidence, right? Yeah, if you have a smoking gun, it means the gun's just been shot, right? Somebody just used a gun. It's like, oh, this is the weapon that they used to shoot the person. That's what it means, smoking gun. You don't need to know this though, okay? So, I mean, if you don't know this, it's an idiomatic saying. So what should you do? Read on, right? Okay, so anyway, let's take a look here. Evolutionary biologist, blah, 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 who has studied blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're much closer to understanding the nitty-gritty of domestication than we were a decade ago. Here's this comparison, right? Okay, so a decade ago, their understanding, I guess, was pretty far off, right? Maybe not as well as now, right? But now it's a lot closer, right? Okay. So it says cats first entered human society. Okay, so now I guess it's just talking about that. What is that? The history of cats domestication. But your focus should be on this: genetic changes, right? Because that's what the title suggested, and that's also what the intro suggested. In the end, your bottom line should be something about the genetic change. It's not necessarily about the history. So in order for us to get to the genetic changes, I guess they do need to mention the history. That's why they're mentioning this to begin with, right? Cats first entered human society about 9,500 years ago, not long after people first took up farming, okay? Drawn to rodents that had invaded blah, 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 slunk out of the deserts and into villages. Many scientists suspect they mostly domesticated themselves, with the friendliest ones able to take advantage of human blah, 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 blah. Okay, over thousands of years, cats shrank, blah, 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 domestic animals from cows. All right, so starting, like, from here, it's all history, right? This is the history. You can just skim this. Do you need to annotate anything? I don't necessarily think so, okay? I mean, if you want, you could. There's a few things that stick out here. I mean, I'm not saying this is the wrong way to go about this. Like, I guess you can do this. Like, I mean, some stuff might, pop out to you. You can do this, but I mean, you should clearly mark where this history ends, right? For you to see. Yeah, it's talking about the history of that. Domestic animals from cows to dogs have undergone similar transformations. Yeah, so it's similar to cows and dogs. Yet scientists know relatively little about the genes involved. Okay, so now we're finally getting at this, right? So probably we're going to be talking about the genetic stuff, right? This is what you should be focusing on. Okay, so let's go to the next part. It says researchers led by MM. Okay. Have now pinpointed some of them. Okay, so pinpointed some of them meaning the genetic changes. Something that relates to the genes. Started with the genome of domestic blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't care. Why? Because this is a study. This is a process, right? I just want to know about this. Just the bottom line, right? Okay, so I mean, you can read this process, yeah, but don't crowd your brain. Remember not to cloud your brain with unnecessary information, because after you read the passage, the only things, you're probably going to only remember 4 or 5 things from the passage. You can't remember more than that. Even, regardless of how smart you is, unless you have photographic memory. So you're not going to remember much. So you don't want to get caught up with this, right? Anyway, so they studied this specific species, and then they identified the genes. They compared the resulting genome with those of cows, tigers, dogs, and humans. So still process, right? And then it's the analysis published recently in blah, blah, blah shows signs of, revealed the 281 genes that show signs of rapid or numerous genetic changes. Okay, so I guess now we're getting somewhere. So these are the results. These are the genes responsible. And then it says, some appear to be involved in hearing and vision. Okay, so now I need to take account of this, because this directly answers the genetic changes, like the genes responsible for that. So I do want to take note of these though, right? I'm not saying memorize these, but you should clearly annotate it so that you can refer back to them later, right? So hearing and vision, the senses that felines rely on most. Others play a role in fat metabolism and are likely an adaptation to cats' highly carnivorous lifestyle. right? So, stuff like these. These are the changes, I guess. Okay, so let's take a look. But the most intriguing finding, okay, so now comes the real bit, right? If the passage talks about something that's most important, most interesting, most intriguing, it should be for you too. That should be the most intriguing thing for you too, in terms of this passage, in terms of understanding this passage. So the most intriguing findings came when the team sequenced the genomes of 22 domestic cats. Okay, so this is a process, right? Of wide variety, blah, 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 eastern, blah, blah, blah. Researchers uncovered at least 13 genes that changed as cat morphs from feral to friendly. Okay, so now here's the start, right? Here's the start. Some of these, based on previous studies of knockout mice, seem to play a role in cognition, including fear responses and ability to learn new behaviors, right? So it's these, right? When given food rewards. That jives with what we know about the domestication of cats. Okay, so do you know what jives mean? Jibe means. If you don't know, I guess, just take a look here, right? That jibes with what we know. Does that go against with what we know, or does it go with what we know? Okay, that should be your question when you're reading this. Because they would have needed to become less fearful of new locations and individuals, and the promise of food would have kept them sticking around. Okay, it doesn't really matter if it goes along or if it goes against, but I mean, to tell you the answer, it means go along. It's consistent with our understanding, right? But anyway, let's take a look here. Needed to become less fearful. Okay, so they needed here, right? So this is the necessaries, right? So less fearful. Yeah, of course. If they're afraid of people, they can't, be domesticated. And the promise of food would have kept them sticking. A promise of food, right? So these two things, I guess, right? So the most intriguing finding, the bottom line, I'm just going to say this, cognition, right? And cognition, they allowed them to become less fearful, and they recognize food and stuff like that, right? So that's the most intriguing genetic change. That's the one that you should focus on, right? Yeah, of course, in the previous part, we talk about like fat metabolism and hearing and vision, but those are less intriguing findings. The most intriguing one is with regards to cognition. Okay, so let's go to the next part. It's my favorite part of the paper. Says a new guy, right? A new person, right? All right, so this person says it's the favorite part. Okay, so is it going to be like a reaction? Possibly, right? It can possibly be a disagree or possibly an agree, right? So what does this person say? She notes that a few of the genes the team identified code for glutamine receptors, which play a key role in learning, may have been selected in humans as well. Okay, so humans as well, right? So she's just saying it applied to humans also. We're hitting on genes that allow our brains to develop and make us interact socially. Okay, well, it's not so much an agree reaction, we find out. It's not necessarily agreeing with it, it's just saying, yeah, I think this is really interesting because, it's also kind of related to humans, right? The team also found 5 genes in domestic cats that influence the migration of neural crest cells. Okay, so starting from this point, right? Starting from this point, we've stopped talking about cats. We're talking about other things. We're talking about the implications. So that's something that you should recognize. Okay, so because we're here, what is this? Domestic cats that influence the migration of neural crest cells, stem cells, and the developing blah, 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 blah. This supports a recent proposal that such cells may be the master control switches of domestication. Okay, well, I guess the humans part is done. Humans part is done, I guess, actually. This one, we're talking about the 5 genes, and then oh, I see like a lot of big words here, like vocabularies that you might not understand, like, you know, like the embryo neural crest cells or whatever. But anyway, you should just say, okay, so influence the migration of neural crest cells, and this one has a definition here, right? That's something that you should do. Okay, so the definition for NCC is going to be this: the stem cells in the developing embryo that affect skull shape to coat color, right? So it's pretty much influencing everything. That's what NCC is. And it says it supports a recent proposal. So it's going along with this recent proposal that such cells may be the master control switches. Okay, so a recent proposal says the NCCs are master control switches, and this study goes along with that proposal, right? And then explaining why domestic animals share common traits. Yeah, so this one is, after all, connecting it once again to other species, right? So why are cats still a bit wilder than our other favorite domesticate, the dog? Okay, well, this took a quick turn here, okay? So now you should start reading. Like, you know, if it goes against your expectation, right? What was our expectation? I mean, we're done with the early thing that we've been talking about, right? What did we get out of this? Like, the most intriguing thing was genes responsible for cognition, and then we got to like the NCC and whatever, this being the master control switch. But this one takes a complete different turn, right? What does it say? Why are cats wilder than dogs, right? Why are cats wilder than dogs? So this person says the cat genome appears to have undergone less intense, okay, so comparisons, and more recent evolutionary pressure. Right? So you should note these comparisons. So the question as to why cats are wilder than dogs, it's because of this. This is the answer, right? That's most surprising. That's not surprising, considering that dogs may have lived with us for up to blah blah blah. Cats were not selected for a purpose like dogs and other domesticates. Okay, they speculate. Okay, whatever. Well, it just gave us like a brief comparison between dogs and cats, right? Okay, so that's our passage. So let's take a look at the main purpose, okay? So the main purpose is, like, content-wise, you need to kind of talk about this, the genes, right? But it could also, I mean, is it talking about a particular study? Possibly. I mean, we did talk about a number of studies, but also it could be, summarize a study sounds okay, right? Summarize a study sounds, I mean, I don't want to be too nitpicky here. Like, if you want to argue, well, it's not necessarily summarizing something, it's also discussing the implications and stuff. And I don't really have anything to say to you, but you know, I just want to be rather more mechanical in my approach. So summarize a study, I'm going to let that go. Describe findings, that I'm going to let that go. Discuss research, I'm going to let that go. Present experimental evidence, I'm going to let that go. So all of them look okay. So what's our deciding factor here? Now we just need to, I guess, talk about the content. So that's what's going to differentiate one answer choice from another, right? So you need to look at the latter parts, okay? So what we want to get at is probably has to, I mean, that thing that we mentioned in the title, right? That change from wild cats into domestic cats, and why did that happen? What are the genes responsible for that? Okay, so genetic differences between various breeds of domestic cats. Well, this is talking about differences among cats. That's not our subject matter. We need to have that change before and after, right? Wild cats into domestic cats, that's something that I'm looking for. Benefits that cats provided to humans, of course not. Genetic changes that cats underwent as part of, the changes as that change occurred. So this one is okay. Contrasting the behavior of wild cat, I mean, it's not a contrast between the behavior of them, it's the genes. So C would be the right answer. Okay. 22, the author includes the phrase "and well." Okay. Why? Well, this so this would qualify as kind of like a casual beginning, you know, like that sometimes happens in science passages. We've seen these before, right? They know that science passages are boring, and you kind of use a rhetoric a little bit casual, but I don't know if that's the case here, right? I mean, it's yeah, and well, you know, it's a lot less formal, right? He's being very casual and informal here, but he also wants to suggest something else, right? So you should be able to spot that here. It's not just saying, oh, you know, like trying to be humorous or whatever. You know, it's not there. So you want to go back and just read that, right? Okay, so line 4, it says, they're about the same size and shape, and well, they both look like cats, right? So stating something very... If I say this, I would be stating the answer. But it's stating something very obvious, right? Well, they look like cats, right? You know, there's... Okay, well, this is from a long time ago. There's that. Do you guys watch a lot of YouTube? So on YouTube, if you go to YouTube, there's a video called "Second Cheapest Wine." It's a comedy skit from a long time ago. Second cheapest wine, and I mean, obviously, I don't think you guys ever bought wine. Hopefully. Did you guys drink wine before? Tasted wine? Smelled wine? Never tasted wine before? Like, not even just like a sip? No? Once? Okay. But you know how there's like really expensive wine and there's really, really cheap wine? But, you know, most people, they don't know about wine. Do you know? Not a lot of people know about wine. I mean, there are some people connoisseurs who they know about wine and stuff. So when people buy wine, everybody's confused, right? But it's making fun of the fact that nobody buys the cheapest wine, right? They always buy the second cheapest wine instead of the cheapest wine, because if you buy the cheapest wine, it's the cheapest one. So it's like you're making a mistake. So it's making fun of that. And you know, they have like two people who go into a restaurant and then they taste the wine, and then taste a glass of wine, and then the other person asks the person, hey, what does it taste like? Like, what do you think? And then that person says, well, yeah, it's wine. Right? I mean, that's why it's that's the humor of it, right? Like, that person has nothing else to say except, oh, it's wine. They don't know anything about wine to say anything about. I mean, same here. Like, yeah, they're cats, right? I mean, it talks about, you know, same shape, and you know, you really don't have anything else to say except the fact that it's cats, right? So that's him trying to be a little bit humorous here. But anyway, it's pointing out the obvious, right? Yeah, they both look like cats. Their appearances are the same. So that would be D here. Okay. So do we need to go over any of the questions? What about like this one? Okay. So this one, so you would need to go back and you would need to read the process. Okay. So this one you don't have a choice, right? I know we skipped the process, right? But when it's asking you about this, yeah, clearly it's asking you about the exact process. So you would need to go back and you would need to read it again, right? Okay, so any questions on this passage? If we don't have any, I'm just going to go to the fifth passage. Okay, let's go to the fifth passage then. So title says staring back to cosmic dawn. Well, I don't know exactly what the author is trying to say when it says staring back, but I know it's talking about cosmic dawn, so probably the beginning of the universe or something like that. But I know it's about space, right? I mean, that's all I know. I don't know exactly what's going to be in there, so I would need to find out. So especially I would need to be a little bit careful in the beginning, right? So let's take a look at the beginning. It says HST is a time machine. Okay, really? Did you guys watch Back to the Future? Who did not watch Back to the Future? Oh, you guys all watch Back to the Future? Oh, you guys don't watch anything else, but how would you watch that? Did your parents tell you to watch it? Just, you guys don't know how to talk? You guys just looked it up and just watched it? Your friends recommended it? What is this? Like 스무고개? Like
It was on TV or always.
it was on TV?
Or
Who? Okay, who liked it? Those of you who didn't like it, why did you not like it? I'm just really curious because I saw that movie when I was really young, so I can't have an objective view of that movie. I don't know how that movie holds up in 2020. Lindsay, why don't you like it? Oh, you didn't watch it? Did you watch it? Yeah? Why don't you like it? Because it's not the alien? Oh, it's too old. Okay, so the sensibility is kind of off. It doesn't seem too relevant. Okay, I get it. Okay, HST is a time machine staring not only. Oh, okay. So now it's talking about staring. Right, staring not only billions of light years into the depths of space, but also billions of years back in time. Okay, so it's not saying it's literally a time machine, right? It's saying it can look into it can look light years into the depths of space, right? Because if you can do that, it means you're watching light that did not yet come to Earth, right? So that's what it means. It's a time machine, right? Which with its extraordinarily sensitive detectors. Okay, so this above Earth shrouding and blurring atmosphere, HST can witness the peak of star formation at cosmic high noon, right? Okay, so like you can make a lot. So this is the idea that you should get here. Okay, you can see a lot of you can make a lot of observations using the telescope. It is a telescope after all, right? So you can look into space and you can look pretty far away, right? Okay, it's a really good telescope. That's what you should be thinking, right? I mean, I still don't know what this passage is going to be about, right? So I'm aware of that. I'm just waiting for that thing to show up. Right now, it just seems like it's a little bit directionless information so far, right? Which ended about 5 billion years after the Big Bang. And at outer limits of its capabilities, we wondered, right? So here we go. Now we're getting somewhere, right? We wondered if, okay, so first of all, what do we know? We know that this passage is written by scientists, right? Whenever the passage says we, right? It's a group of scientists usually, right? In science passages, right? I mean, not in history passages. We wondered if it could detect the faintest candles of creation, the earliest galaxies. Okay, so that was their question, right? Can we look at these or no? Right? Can we look at these or no? That was their question. Pretty simple, right? Can we look at the earliest galaxies? Made of the earliest stars at cosmic dawn when the universe was less than 1 billion years old. Okay, so I mean, these are all modifying it. I don't really care about it. I just want to get this, right? They were just curious, hey, using the HST, can we look at this? Can we look at the earliest galaxies? That's pretty simple, right? So that was their question, I would say, right? So let's move on. It says, those were the hopes of two of us authors, okay, after NASA astronauts installed HST's W in 2009. Okay, so that were the hopes, I guess. Okay, but still, this is like back in the day, right? It doesn't sound too old for me, but probably old for you guys. Anyway, they're saying like, yeah, that's what we were hoping when we were using this W, which enabled Hubble to survey the infrared sky about 30 times faster than before. Okay, so we have a before and after here, right? Within a few months, Hubble pointed the new camera at the HUDF. Okay, so they pointed the camera at HUDF. So this is somewhere probably in the sky, and then it says a tiny region in the constellation F, only a tenth of the diameter of the full moon, and took full. Okay, so this is just an area. This is just a region in space, I guess. So they looked here and took exposures totaling about 3 days. Those deep HUDF images revealed some of the most distant galaxies. So they ever found, which look very different than nearby galaxies. Okay, here we have a comparison, right? So it's different from nearby galaxies, but okay, here, right? There's a catch to it, right? So it's, yeah, they were hoping they can look at hey, can we look at the earliest galaxies? And then they did all this, right? They used W, blah, 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 blah. And then they looked at HUDF. But the HUDF represented just a pinprick poke at the universe, right? So that was just a really small portion of that. That's just what it's saying, right? So we began an ambitious program. Okay, so you should probably number this number 2, right? Because step number 1 was the previous paragraph, right? The second, was that the second paragraph that we just read? Yeah, looking into HUDF, right? That's they looked at HUDF, but this was only a small portion, right? So they began another program at visible and near infrared wavelengths, a natural successor to HUDF, right? Okay, so this time they looked at candles. Okay, so that's what this passage is about, I guess, right? Candles. Pronounced candles. We designed candles primarily to document the first 1/3. Okay, so they wanted to do this. This was their motivation, I guess, right? The first 1/3 of galaxy evolution. The program also would enable astronomers to search for the most distant type Ia supernovae, exploding white dwarf stars. This would be the implication, right? This were all the possibilities. These were the possibilities. Candles could thus test whether type A supernovae are also a valid yardstick for the early universe, right? So, they could find all these different things out, right? All this potential about, finding this out. So, yeah. Anyway, let's look at the next part. And then it says, candles became the largest observing program ever undertaken. Okay, so this was a big project. The telescope devoted 600 hours. Okay, so I don't really care about that. I just say, a lot of hours, I guess. Fully 10% of its observing time to candles for 3 years. So it's saying it spent a lot of its time. It spent a lot of this time surveying an area of sky 60 times larger than the HUDF. So it's a lot bigger than HUDF, blah, blah. Candles targeted 5 patches of the northern and southern skies. Okay, so I know it just seems like I'm just taking in information, but that's what you should do. For this passage, I don't see I don't see a part that really sticks out to me just yet. You know, there would be that part later on. I'm hoping, and for now, I'm just kind of organizing information, right? I'm just determining what's completely not important. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean this one, yeah, you could potentially get a question with the with you know type I or whatever. But anyway, like. You can come back to this. This is talking about the implications and the potentials of candles and stuff like that. So you know, like you can just annotate right next to it and then move on. So I'm just going to keep going here. It says candles targeted 5 patches of the northern and southern skies, each about 1/4 of the angular size of the Orion Nebula. Each patch has been well studied from blah, 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 giving plenty of complementary data across. Wow. Okay, that's just a lot of information, but it's just talking about, okay, well, they looked at candles, right? This is their process. In essence, this is their process, right? Okay. So next part, let's go. Depending on the field, candles took multiple images with exposure times ranging from 40 minutes to roughly 3 hours. Okay, so it was different. Although candles surveyed a total area only about that of the full moon, the long exposures looked so deep into the cosmos that they recorded roughly 250,000 ancient galaxies in enough detail to reveal their sizes, shapes, and even gross internal structures. This is what they found out. Such a rich treasure trove, right? So this is telling us how to perceive this information. It's saying, I mean, for regular people, we wouldn't know the value of this. So it's pointing out, you know, yeah, such a rich treasure trove. So so that we get an understanding of how valuable this is. Provides powerful new data for statistical studies of galaxy growth and evolution. Again, this is talking about the implication. And then it says, astrophysicists will continue to analyze the wealth of observations for years to come. Okay, so this is talking about some future possibilities. Astrophysicists will continue doing that. The data have already led to new findings and mysteries about the early universe. Okay. Okay, I mean, from that other class, I heard a lot of people got confused with the graph question, like 51 and 52. Close your eyes. Who got 51 and or 52? Close your eyes, guys. Who got 51 and or 52 wrong? Okay, let's take a look. Okay, we'll take a look at 51 first, okay? So this one is just looking at the figure. It's not looking at the, you need to know that we're not looking at the passage, right? If it's asking you to look at the passage, it will tell you to, okay? So you just need to look at the graph, right? So let's take a look. According to the figure, which choice is a possible redshift, what? Of a galaxy made of stars. So like, you need to be careful not to be so intimidated because you just need to look at the figure, right? Just need to look at the figure. I don't know what a redshift of a galaxy is, but anyway, so my clue is this. Okay, so redshift and then cosmic dawn. That's it, right? You just need to look for these two things, right? This is 1, this is 2, right? Okay, so let's go to the graph. Let's take a look. All right, so redshift is... wait. Redshift is this x-axis, right? It's this cosmic dawn. Yeah, so cosmic dawn is going to be anywhere, and so cosmic dawn. Okay, so it needs to be like in this range. That's what cosmic dawn is, right? So this dark area is cosmic dawn. This white area is cosmic high noon.
Small part before high
What?
noon. The small part before high noon is cosmic dawn.
The small what?
Part
Is this
0 to 1 is cosmic dawn.
0 to 1 is cosmic dawn? Oh, okay. It looked black. Okay, so this is cosmic dawn. So, okay, we're just looking at this, right? Why? Okay, then which one did you guys choose? Did you guys get 50? Okay, close your eyes. Who got 51 wrong? Okay, open your eyes. Why did you get this wrong? Oh, okay. So you got confused with this, I guess. Right? Okay, so if you look here, this is time since the Big Bang. The redshift is here. Okay? So 9. Somewhere or something along the ballpark between 6 and 9 or more, I guess. So D, right? Okay. All right, so a lot of info. Okay. I guess you guys 그냥 just 귀찮아 and you just guessed? Is that what happened? You just got lazy. You didn't want to read this. You're just like, okay, like whatever, I'll just get it wrong. Okay, astronomers estimate that the sun formed about 8.5 billion years after the Big Bang. Okay, according to the figure, what was the star formation rate in solar masses per year? Okay, so where's the star formation rate? Okay, so this is the star formation rate. So right, so these are the numbers, right? These are the star formation rate, and we're talking about 8.5 billion years. Okay, so time since Big Bang, so 8.5 billion years, right? So I just want to go up like as straight as I can from here, right? Why can't I do this? Is this why you guys got it wrong? Like somewhere like this, right? And this would seem I don't know, like somewhere in this ballpark, I don't know. Like somewhere like here, right? So about 4, right? Wait, I don't understand. Why? Wait, close your eyes. Who got 52 wrong? Okay, good. Well, not good, but okay. Okay, so you guys get it now. Okay. So, all right. Which okay. I'll take questions for this passage, but I'll just do this passage. Okay, so it's talking about the focus shift. Okay, so you shouldn't go back to the passage. You're not gonna find it out. Come on, like just read through. Okay, so an example of data collected using the HST. Like you might have the urge to do so. I think I remember a lot of numbers with that and stuff. So you might come to a conclusion. Oh, maybe it was there, right? Just leave it at that. Okay. Don't go back. Suppress your urge to go back. Right? So maybe to a discussion of design flaws. Well, we don't talk about the flaws. That's for sure. I know about that. Right? If there were flaws or problems, I would have annotated that. That's something really huge, right? What about B? Okay, we don't have a new theory, right? This passage is not talking about theories at all. What about C? A list of the author's accomplishments. No, we don't have the author's accomplishments. Oh, this person. Don't go back. Okay? Yeah. Don't go back. I mean, we don't have a list of the author's accomplishments. I mean, this person did this person. No, it was presented in such a way as to say, you know, this is what we wanted to find out, and then so we used the HST, blah, 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 right? It's not saying, hey, look at me, right? Look at me, this is what we accomplished. Number one, we accomplished this. Number two, we accomplished that. No, that didn't show up. So it's probably D. Take a look. Overview of the capabilities of the HST. Yeah, we discussed this at great length, actually. A discussion of research undertaken that utilize those capabilities. Yeah, that would be candles, probably. So D would be the right answer. Okay, so questions on this passage?
46.
Okay, so may be useful because, okay, so may be useful because, but I know where this is. I know exactly where the supernova thing is, right? So you should refer back to the passage easily. Does this have a line reference question? No. Even if it doesn't have a line reference question, you should be able to go back. And what is this asking? Because, I mean, it's just asking you, hey, did you understand that implication that I talked about? That the potential use for this, right? So basically, it's just saying, hey, find out why this is useful, okay? So why don't we go back? Where's that supernova thing? Here, right? So what is that? Is this the first time that it shows up? Yeah, okay, so let's take a look. So starting from here, the program would also enable, and we're talking about the possibilities, right? Oh, you know, it can do this, it can do this. And candles could thus test whether this could be used as a valid yardstick for the early universe. If you don't know what a yardstick is, you could potentially get this wrong, right? Okay, but you can't just solve this using this sentence actually, because candles could thus test thus. So it's saying therefore. So you need to kind of take a look a little bit before this. Oh, actually, it's mentioned here also. All right, so you need to start reading from here. Sorry. Okay, program also would enable astronomers to search for the most distant type I, exploding white dwarf stars that are the best known standard candles for measuring the universe's recent expansion rate. Yeah, so this is what we can find out. We can measure the universe's recent expansion rate, and that could serve, it could, that could be a yardstick. So something that has to do with this, right? So let's go back, 46. So it's A, right? Yeah, recent expansion rate. We talked about that. That's going to, it's going to be a standard for measuring the universe's recent expansion rate. So A. Yeah. Others? Okay, if not, I'll go back to the reading workbook. Okay, I want to take a look at this passage. I'm not going to go over the passage. The passage itself was pretty easy, right? Who thought it was difficult? So number 1 is C. Number 2 is B. All right, so this one, all right? Number 3, let's take a look. Okay, so close your eyes. Who chose A? B? C? D? Okay, good. All right, so number 3, engineer at C, right? So let's go back to 23. Grizzled, his peculiar aviator glasses bent and smudged, and tended the household machinery, the air conditioners, water heaters, refrigerators, and water pumps like an engineer tending the boilers on a foundering steamer, right? Okay, so so like an engineer. So if you say like an engineer, don't make any guesses. Same as skins and horses, okay? Don't make any guesses and say, this guy knows how to deal with machines, right? Do not do that, right? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Skins and horses, you can't say athletic. Skins and horses, you need to look at another word. Engineer, don't make any assumptions. Look at other words. Look at other clues, okay? What does it say? By superhuman efforts. This is the word that you should look at, right? So by engineer, it doesn't mean he was smart. It doesn't mean that he was good with machines. It means he worked hard and he did all of these things, right? So that's why for number 3, it would be D, right? How demanding it was, okay? Number 4 is A. Okay, number 5. Okay, number 5, why don't you guys close your eyes? Okay, close your eyes. Number 5, who chose A, B, C, D? Okay, good. All right, so let's take a look. So, take a look here. In the context of the conversation, so you need to look at the entire conversation, right? The entire conversation, and what does his comments do, right? In like this starting from sir to beg you, what's the purpose? Like what does this do? What does this accomplish? That's what it's asking, right? So let's go back. Let's go back to line 43. So, okay, so let's take a look at the conversation itself, right? Sir, as you know, right, your lands stretch from here to the Indus. There's a lot of land, right? You're a lot of land, but one man, me, your servant, right? I mean, I'm the only one doing this, right? I'm the only one doing this, and then it says, in your service, I have earned these gray hairs. What does it mean? I worked this hard, right? I worked this hard, and then he bowed his head, and now I cannot fulfill my duties as I should, right? So he's saying, I can't fulfill my duties, and then said, enough, sir, enough. I beg you, forgive me my weakness, okay? So forgive me my weakness, and then better a darkened house and proud hunger than disgrace in the light of day, right? So I would rather not disgrace myself. I mean, I don't want to get paid and disgrace myself. I would rather not get paid and not disgrace myself. That's the route that I would go in. And then release me, I ask you, I beg you, right? Okay. Okay, and then it says, what was the, starting from 43? Was it 43 to 52? And then, okay, so this person says, oh, hey, what's the matter? And then they start talking. And then And then he says, "Hi, I served you for all those years, and because of, I mean, I'm on my bicycle with my old legs. I can't do this. I cannot any longer bicycle about like blah blah blah. I can't go from farm to farm." And then he says, "Let me go," right? And he says, "What's the solution?" And okay, so you see what's happening? Does he intend to quit? Okay, so I mean, he's talking in a very roundabout way of saying, "Oh, I worked so hard. I've earned these gray hairs. If you want to quit, okay, let's say you want to quit, you really want to quit. What would you do? You go and say, 'Hey, screw you, bye.' Okay, that's that's what you would do. He's not doing that. He's saying, 'I served you so well. I've earned these gray hairs. I'm on this bicycle, and my legs, they're not holding up. Blah blah blah.' And the guy who's listening to this, he gets it too. He's like, 'Hey, what's the matter?' And then he said, 'Hey,' and then he says, 'Hey, what's the solution?' So it's as if he's presenting a problem, right? He's not necessarily intending to quit, right? Seeing that they had come to the crux. See this, right? So this is the main thing that he wanted to discuss to begin with. So he doesn't intend to quit. So that part in the very beginning, what does this do? This is just saying, "Hey, I worked so hard for you," right? "Hey, I worked so hard." Right? That kind of he doesn't necessarily. I don't have it. Okay? I don't have it. As long as you guys don't have it, I don't have it. I'm talking about COVID. I don't have it. It's because of this chalk. Yeah. Anyway, so let's go back to the question. So it's not this like a lot of you chose. So he's not notifying him that it's quitting, right? He's saying, "Hey, listen to what I'm saying. Hey, I've been really diligent to you, blah 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 blah." He's not boasting though, right? And if anything, he's saying he's not competent because of his conditions right now. So 6 is D. 7 is 7 is B. And 8 is 8 is also B. 9 is A. 10 is D. I'm going to briefly go over this passage. Sorry about this. I don't know, something. Maybe I really do have it. No, I'm just kidding. It's impossible unless you guys have it, because the only people I meet are you guys. I live like right across the street, so the only place I come to is here. So if you guys have it, possibly, but I don't know. Like, I see some of you tightening your masks and stuff. Okay. So this is a passage that you need to read really fast also, okay? Why you shouldn't trust internet comments. Okay, so you're done, basically. It's going to say internet comments are not, they don't help, right? Or something along those lines. It's not going to go in a positive light. We know from the get-go that it's going to be talking about the downsides of trusting internet comments or whatnot. Wisdom of crowds. So this is something that he's going to denounce, right? Because he doesn't trust internet comments. I could sense that. Anyway, wisdom of crowds has become a mantra of the internet. You need to choose blah, blah, blah. Check out blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, anyway. So, everyone believes in the wisdom of crowds in the internet age, right? Do you guys also? Do you guys read reviews? Yeah, I think reviews are really skewed. Yeah, I mean, I think it's especially helpful if it's really bad, right? if I see like just the bunch of ones, then I know that product is bad. But if you think like a product that you just bought is mediocre, like 3 or 4 stars, 3 stars, would you vote on that? I mean, I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily take out the time of my day to go online and write a review for a 3-star review. Like, why would you do that? So usually people who write reviews are extremely happy about the product, people who are extremely happy, or people who are extremely unhappy. It's not a lot of people in the middle, right? It says, but a new study suggests that such online scores don't always reveal the best choice. Yeah, so this is it, right? This is what the passage wants to get at. Eventually, it's probably going to explain to us why this is the case, right? Massive controlled environment of web users find that such ratings are highly susceptible to herd behavior, and that the herd can be manipulated. It helps if you know what herd behavior is. You know what herd behavior is?
Like bandwagon.
Yeah. Well, kind of like bandwagon, right? 군중 심리, right? So you just go along with other people, right? Sometimes the crowd really is wiser than you. Okay, so it's a little bit more nuanced than you thought, right? Because he's talking about instances in which the crowd is wise, right? Classic examples: guessing the weight, guessing the weight of a bull, or a number of gumballs in a jar. I don't know what kind of examples these are. Your guess is probably going to be far from the mark, whereas the average of many people's choices is remarkably close to the true number. Okay, I guess it's about numbers. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's my initial guess after I read this. So when does it help? When's the crowd helpful? When I'm guessing numbers, right? When is the crowd helpful? When you're guessing about numbers. That's what I'll say for now on. Just for now. But what happens when the goal is to judge something less tangible? Oh, okay. So what we've been talking about is something that is tangible, right? So this is numbers and something that's tangible, such as the quality. I guess, so if we talk about the quality, the answer is going to be no. The crowd is not going to help. So according to one theory, the wisdom of the crowd still holds. Oh, actually, one theory says it's okay. Aggregate produces a stable, reliable value, but skeptics. Okay, so there's one theory, and there's skeptics argue that people's opinions are easily swayed by those of others. Okay, so skeptics say you can be swayed, and I kind of anticipated this because of that herd behavior thing, right? So nudging a crowd early on by presenting contrary opinions, for example, exposing them to some very good blah, 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 will steer the crowd, right? Okay, it will just sway, right? To test, okay, so now we're testing this, right? you need to manipulate blah, 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 right? So it's proposing a kind of experiment, right? Okay, so when it comes to quality, there's going to be one theory and there's going to be skeptics, right? So they say this is reliable. Skeptics say no, they can be swayed. For 5 months, every comment, okay, so now this is a process, right? It's about upvotes and downvotes, right? Upvotes and downvotes. The users generated more than blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I know what they're testing, right? They're probably gonna test, can they be swayed or no, right? Can they be swayed or no? At least when it comes to comments on news sites, the crowd is more herd-like than wise. Okay, so he's saying, right? So they are swayed. That's the result. So swayed. So when it comes to news sites, I guess that's what it wants to say. So the study, when it comes to news sites, they are swayed. Comments that received fake positive votes, I don't care. I mean, this is discussing the results in detail, like based on that experiment. So I don't want to take a look. By the end of blah, blah, blah. However, the same did not hold for negative manipulation. Okay, so negative manipulation. Okay, so I guess this was about positive votes and this is about negative votes, right? Got a fake downvote were negated by an upvote. Okay, so negative and there's positive. So positive is swayed, negative is not swayed, right? One experiment does not reveal the psychology. Our experiment does not reveal the psychology. Okay, so it doesn't do this, but an intuitive explanation. Okay, so this intuitive explanation. So this is just based on feel, right? It's not, there's no science behind it, but that's just how they choose to explain it, is that people are more skeptical of negative, or okay, more skeptical of negative influence. What does it say after that? Duncan Watts. Okay, so this person agrees. All right, there you go. So he agrees that people they're more skeptical about negative influences. He says, but one question is whether the positive bias is specific to this site or true in general. Okay, so he does have a concern, right? So it's not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing, but this is some kind of concern. He points out that the category of the news items in the experiment had a strong effect. Okay, so category had a strong effect. So that's what he's saying. Hey, you should probably think about this. I would have thought that business is pretty similar to economics, that they found a much stronger effect. Blah, blah, blah. What explains this difference? So why is it different that he's saying? Like across the board, it's different. Like for business, it's different. For economics, it's different, right? Will companies be able to boost their products by manipulating online ratings on a massive scale? So this one is asking, could this be practical? Could this be used? Or could this be exploited, right? That is easier said than done. Okay, so I think we're done, right? So we can't really do that, right? And that's kind of hard. Okay, so that was pretty simple, right? So the main thing is they asked in the beginning, hey, you shouldn't really trust internet comments. There's sometimes where people are right? There's sometimes where the crowd is more, crowd is smarter than you, and that has to do with tangible things like numbers and stuff. But when it comes to quality, the skeptics say they can easily be swayed. And the study said, well, when it comes to negative influence, you can't really be swayed, but for positive influences, you can be swayed. And then we have this whole bit by Duncan Watts. And that's it. Okay, so for homework, why don't you do the next exercises, okay, for reading and writing, okay? The answers, Erica will give it to you, okay, after lunch.